So, what does it actually mean to be alive? You'd think that's a simple question, right? But it turns out the answer is a whole lot more complex than you might expect. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the science of life itself. Let's get into it.
Let's kick things off with a pretty basic question. What's the difference between a rock and a dog? You'd probably say, well, the dog runs around, it breathes, it barks, obvious stuff. But what about when the dog's asleep? It's not moving, but it's still alive for sure. So this tells us that what we see on the surface doesn't really give us the full picture. So we tend to focus on these big, obvious signs of life, running, growing, breathing. But biologists, they'll tell you the real sign of life is something you can't see at all. It's this constant, invisible dance of molecules. That's where the magic is happening, way down at a level our eyes just can't see. Okay, so what does make something alive then? In this first part, we're going to peel back the layers and look beyond what we can see, right down to the fundamental principles of life at the molecular level. All right, the first thing you need to know, living things are all about organization. I mean, they are incredibly well-organized structures. They're not just a random blob of stuff. Think about it. You have cells that form tissues, and inside those cells are even smaller, super intricate parts. It's like a perfectly built city, all working together. But here's the twist. The universe itself, well, it's constantly trying to mess things up, to break down all that perfect order. It's a fundamental rule of physics, this natural slide towards chaos. And if an organism's internal organization completely breaks down, it dies. So you could say that every single living thing is in a constant fight against the entire universe. And this constant fight, this battle against breaking down, that requires a ton of work. We can call it life's essential maintenance. See, being alive isn't just being. It's an active, nonstop process of repair and upkeep. These ongoing repair jobs, this maintenance work, that's what scientists call life processes. They're basically the collection of all the functions that stop an organism's internal machinery from falling apart. And get this, they're running 24/7, even when you're fast asleep. So what are these life processes exactly? Well, let's meet the internal crew, the A-team that's working inside you right this very second to keep you going. Okay, here are the four big ones. First, you've got nutrition. That's all about getting the fuel and building materials. Then there's respiration. And listen, we're not just talking about breathing here. This is cellular respiration, the chemical process that actually unlocks the energy from that fuel. Next up is transportation, which is basically the body's delivery service. And finally, excretion, the waste disposal team. The crucial part is that all four of these have to work together in perfect harmony. All right, let's dive a little deeper into that first one, nutrition. How do living things actually get their fuel? Well, here on Earth, life has basically come up with two main game plans. Okay, so on one side, you have the autotrophs. You can just think of them as self-feeders. Plants are the classic example, right? They take simple stuff from the air and soil like CO2 and water, grab some sunlight, and boom, they make their own food. But then you've got the heterotrophs, the other feeders. And yeah, that's us. It's also other animals, fungi. We can't make our own food. We have to go out and eat complex things that other living things have already put together. So since we're heterotrophs, we have to eat. Let's make this super personal and actually follow a piece of food on its incredible journey through your own digestive system. Our journey is going to take place in what's called the alimentary canal. It's basically this long, winding tube that runs all the way from your mouth to the other end. And it is an absolute marvel of biological engineering, with each section having its own very specific, very important job. But before we start our trip, we have to meet the real MVPs of this whole operation, enzymes. The best way to think about them is as tiny biological catalysts, or even better, molecular scissors. Their whole job is to take the huge, complex molecules in your food and just snip, 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 chop them up into tiny pieces your body can actually absorb. And they are total specialists. The enzyme that works on starch won't even look at a protein. It's why we need a whole toolkit of different ones. Okay, so our journey has four main stops. We'll start in the mouth, then head to the stomach, move into the small intestine, and finish up in the large intestine. So let's start at the very beginning, the mouth. The second that food enters your mouth, the game is on. Digestion starts right away. Your teeth get to work, that's the mechanical part, crushing it into smaller bits. At the same time, your salivary glands release saliva, which has this enzyme called amylase. And that enzyme doesn't waste any time. It immediately starts the chemical breakdown, turning complex starches into simpler sugars.
From there, the food heads down to the stomach. And this place is like a cement mixer. The muscular walls are just churning and mashing everything together. Then, the stomach releases some seriously powerful hydrochloric acid, which makes the whole environment super acidic. This helps another enzyme, called pepsin, get to work digesting proteins. Now, you might be wondering, why doesn't the stomach digest itself? Great question. It's protected by a thick layer of mucus that acts as a shield.
Okay, now we've reached this small intestine, and folks, this is the main event. This is where the final complete digestion of everything happens. It gets help from some friends. Bile from the liver comes in to break down fats, and a whole bunch of enzymes from the pancreas show up to finish off the proteins and fats. By the end of this stage, all your food has been broken down into its fundamental building blocks: glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids.
So, the food is all broken down. Now what? How does your body actually absorb all those amazing nutrients? Well, the inside wall of the small intestine is covered with millions of these tiny, finger-like things called villi. Seriously, think of a shaggy carpet. All those folds and fingers create a massive surface area, which makes it incredibly good at soaking up all those digested food molecules and getting them into your bloodstream. So there you have it. That's nutrition in a nutshell. But remember, that's just one piece of the puzzle. It's just one part of this huge maintenance job. So let's zoom back out and see how all these life processes fit together.
And this is where you can really see the beautiful teamwork of life. Nutrition gets you the fuel, but that fuel is totally useless until respiration comes along and unlocks its energy. Then, the transportation system, your bloodstream, is like the highway system, delivering that energy and all the raw materials to every single cell in your body. But all this work creates waste, right? That's where excretion comes in, the vital cleanup crew that gets rid of all the toxic stuff to keep the whole system running smoothly. It's a perfect interconnected cycle.
So we come all the way back to our first question, but now with a totally new way of looking at it. Being alive isn't really about the things we can see on the outside. It's about this constant, invisible, non-stop job of molecular maintenance happening on the inside. Which leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending thought. If being alive means you're in a state of constant internal motion, what does it even mean to be truly